Hey gang, Sean from The Good Dog. How are you guys doing? Another toasty day out here in New Orleans. I'll view the city for you. Quick check-in about tools and making decisions about tools based on hearsay, based on appearance, based on a lack of experience hands-on with them, and then just jumping to conclusions. So this is something that I've seen a lot, and I get it, right? So I get if you're talking about a prong collar, and people have seen pictures of prong collars, they look terrible, right? I mean, I get it, right? I'm not living in some alternate universe. Like, I get a prong collar, it's terribly named, or pinch collar, terribly named. Whoever decided to like market these like terrible names, but they don't pinch, and the prongs on them make it sound like there's some kind of impaling device, but that's not what they do at all. They just very evenly add pressure around the dog's neck in distinct spots to where you don't need to use very much pressure, versus something like a slip lead, which sounds great, but and looks great, because you're just putting this rope around the dog's neck, or this lead around the dog's neck, whatever you want to call it, and then just applying pressure, and there's no pokey things to look nasty or anything like that. Problem is that although that looks really nice, for most dogs, what you'll find about 99% of dogs on slips is that because the pressure is so distributed, so how do I put it? Because the pressure is in a wider kind of swath around the dog's neck, rather than in specific spots like the prong delivers it. And because there's no, the prong is meant to not be comfortable if activated, right? So let's get away from like it's, unicorns and flowers, and like it's meant to be uncomfortable, like a parking ticket is meant to be uncomfortable, right? It's meant to create a change in behavior, but it's not meant to change your life. It's not meant to do any damage. It's meant to change a course, change a choice, right? And so with the slip lead, because they're so easy to pull against, what you'll find is, although they look good, dogs will be coughing and choking and gagging and pulling and being out of sorts. But it's the pretty tool, it's the prettier looking tool, it's the nicer looking tool, it's the nicer sounding tool. But in reality, working with a lot of dogs, I've watched dogs just choke the crap out of themselves on slip leads. And if you like slip leads and they work for you, that's great. I'm just saying, my personal experience, I've never seen dogs choke or cough or hack or do any of that stuff on a prong collar, ever. So what I have seen is I've seen the ability to have very delicate communications with dogs with a prong collar, needing very, very minute amounts of pressure, and being able to direct and guide and teach in the least invasive fashion. But it's counterintuitive because it's a prong collar or a pinch collar and it looks terrible. But the reality is it's a tool that allows for very, very, very subtle pressure and very, very subtle communication that's very effective. So we've got the prong and the slip. Slip sounds prettier, it looks prettier, but in actuality is, in my experience, much harder on the dog. Prong collar sounds terrible, looks terrible, but in reality is much easier on the dog. Same thing goes for an e-collar, right? So, and I'm not going to make a direct comparison. I mean, I guess you could make like a comparison with like a long line or something like that, but I'm not even going to make a direct comparison between an e-collar and another collar, because there's really nothing else like it. It really is an individual collar, or a unique kind of tool. And anytime people talk about e-collars, their natural inclination, if they don't have experience with them, is to jump to this thing of like, we're electrocuting dogs. How could this be helpful for dogs? And once again, I get it. Once again, I'm not living in some alternate universe. I get it. Like, if that was the reality, that would be a crappy reality. That would be a reality that I would be fighting against as well. If dogs were walking around being electrocuted to try and train them, that would be the worst. I want to say, but I'm trying to keep this clean. So it would be crappiest of crappy, horrific kind of training. But that's not what e-collars do. They don't electrocute dogs, but that's the perception. So as long as people are walking around with the perception that prong collars are impaling dogs, e-collars are electrocuting dogs, you're gonna have people feeling incredible emotional, or having incredible emotional reactions to these tools, because they've never actually worked with them. They've never used them. They've never been hands-on with them. They haven't seen how modern e-collars are incredibly sensitive. They work at levels that you can't feel. They work at levels that you can definitely feel, and they work at a million different variables in between. So like a highly adjustable volume knob, something like that. So you can whisper to your dog, you can yell to your dog if your dog needs that, or you can talk in just a speaking tone. Whatever you need, whatever methodology or approach you're using, or whatever, I should say, part of training that you're at, whether you're at very like mild, like let me just show you how to do this kind of training, the guidance, or whether you're at the part of proofing, of saying like, hey, you know better than that, and you can't do that. You can't chase that rabbit, you can't chase that dog, you can't chase this, and here's the consequence for it, and you already have been taught fairly, so it's a fair consequence, and so now I'm going to use the e-collar at a slightly higher level, or considerably higher level, depending on what the dog needs for that moment to be valuable. But is the dog being electrocuted? No. Has the dog been fairly taught what it means? Yes. So if you've used a TENS machine, if you've had physical therapy, you've had a TENS machine on, which I've had on, and you know the feeling, the sensation, can contract your muscles, it's the same technology, it's the same concept, it's the same stuff. Now, does your physical therapist say, I'm going to bring you into the room and we're going to electrocute you until you're feeling better? No, because that's not what they're doing. So but the concept with the tools that we're using, or the tools that I'm talking about, are that they are either impaling dogs or they're electrocuting dogs. And if that's the concept, and if that concept continues to continue, then people are going to continue to have these incredibly negative emotional responses to them, and I get it. But they're not appropriate responses, because they're not responses born out of experience, hands-on. So if you've seen crappy videos, if you've seen videos of dogs being abused using an e-collar or a prong collar or something like that, what you haven't seen is you haven't seen the myriad of dogs that are being abused every day that people just aren't shooting videos of using all sorts of other things, you know, hitting them with a shoe, hitting them with whatever, you know, whatever it might be. You're just happening to see, if you're seeing anything negative, you're just seeing the negative stuff, because negative stuff gets play, and so people share that stuff more often, and it also incites a lot of emotionality, as it should. But that doesn't mean that that's what's going on in the totality, or I should say in the majority of the world. The majority of dog trainers are doing very humane, mild, considerate, respectful, awesome work with dogs. And so, but I don't want to get off on a tangent. What I do want to do is try and stay focused here and really try and encourage anyone, because this is the message I hear over and over again, whether it's at seminars or whether it's clients. Once they get their hands on these tools and they see what they're like in reality, not in something they've read, or though that one picture that circulates on the internet over and over again of like a dog with a shaved neck with all these holes in its neck, and they say it's from the prong collar, and they insinuate that it's from it being abused, from the dog being like just corrected, and that's what a prong collar will do. Nothing can be further from the truth. That's a dog who was left with a prong collar on and was allowed for it to embed in the dog's neck, like a harness or a flat buckle or any other kind of collar will. You can do a search on Google and Google Images for embedded collars, and you'll find a million embedded collars, but you probably only find one prong collar, but you'll find millions of other collars embedded. So that picture that you're seeing that's been pushed around as propaganda of why not to use a prong collar is based on that image trying to portray to you that that's what prong collars do to dogs and that's how they train dogs, but they don't. That's an embedded collar on a dog, right? So anyways, what I'd really like to do is encourage anybody with an open mind, anybody that's on the fence, anybody that's looking to do better by rescue dogs, shelter dogs, foster dogs, or their own dogs, anybody who's not, if you're totally on the opposite end and you're like, F those tools and F this guy and F all that stuff, you're not really going to be interested in checking any of this out, and that's fine, that's totally cool. But anybody that's on the fence, anybody that's like, well, I wonder if this could be, or I've heard some other things from other dog owners that they've had really positive results, or, you know, I'm curious about these. If you're anywhere on the fence, if you're anywhere in need of help and not finding it elsewhere, if you're anywhere where you're thinking that there could be possibilities with other tools that you haven't tried, I encourage you to find someone to help you learn about these tools. Hire a trainer that's experienced, hire a trainer with good reputation, hire a trainer that uses e-collars or uses prong collars. Watch trainers that know how to use these tools demonstrate how to use e-collars and prong collars. What you'll find is that they don't look anything like what people are talking about as far as the way they're being used. The only exception would be the teeny little percentage of people doing really, really crappy work. And there's going to be a teeny percentage of people doing crappy work in any field, whether it's dogs or whatever, but it's not the tool's fault, it's the crappy trainer's fault. So let's be really clear about that if you want to abuse a dog, there's a lot of ways to do it, and there's a lot of cheaper ways to do it. You don't need to fork out a bunch of dough for an e-collar, or fork out any dough, you know, like it's a lot less, but fork out dough for a prong collar. You can easily use the broom or your shoe or whatever else you want to use. You don't need to spend a bunch of dough if you want to abuse a dog, if that's your intention. So I encourage any of you guys that are on the fence, any of you who are curious, any that might be like, I wonder, anybody with an open mind, search out the information and then make a determination. If you still don't like the tool, if you still don't like the reaction, if you still don't think that it's humane, if you still don't think that it's good for your dog or good for dogs in general, then by all means, don't use them and get on your soapbox and tell the world how you feel about it. All I'm asking is that you go out and you check them out personally and get a personal feel, a personal experience, and base your opinion on personal experience. Not propaganda, not pictures, not stuff floating on the internet that's been doctored up, or stuff floating on the internet that's cherry-picked as the worst of the worst. Go out and find the information for yourself. Do the work. It takes work. It doesn't take any work to sit behind your computer and just be like, wow, I just saw a really crappy video of a dog, you know, like, do the work, even if you are at your computer, of searching for other videos. Search for what is the majority out there doing? How are they using these tools, and what do they like? Or hire somebody and get some personal experience with your dog, or if you're in rescue, whatever, have a trainer show you how they use these tools on one of their dogs or something like that, and get some real first-hand perspective. Then make your decision. So I've got no problem with anybody choosing what tools they want to use, and even having very strong feelings about the tools. Just make sure that the opinions and the feelings are based on true opinions and feelings of actually experiencing them. So we got a helicopter going on here. One of the best responses that we got, sorry, I'm trying to film. One of the best responses that we got when we were in Scotland was from a very experienced trainer who had never used a prong collar. Very smart lady, had done all sorts of other stuff, had used an e-collar, but had an emotional response to a prong collar. And she even acknowledged it in the video and said, I had this really emotional kind of like visceral response to prong collars. I'd heard all this stuff and I just couldn't get past it. And so she came to the seminar primarily to see, what do we do with prong collars and how does it look and how do they work? So she came, she saw, and then at the end we did a little video testimonial with everybody there, and she was like, I had no idea that prong collars worked like that. I had no idea that they were so gentle, that they could be used in such a mild fashion. I had no idea that the training was such a mild, easy, gentle conversation. It turned her world around, but only because she got to experience it. And I'm not saying you'll all have that same experience. I'm not saying you'll all feel the same way. I'm not saying you'll all go like, yes, prong collars or e-collars. And that's really okay. But just make sure that if you're a smart person, I mean, this just goes down like in the smart person category. Like, this is just regardless of tools or anything else we're talking about. Smart people base their responses and base their opinions on experience and knowledge that they've gleaned, that they've picked up, that they've seen, rather than just hearsay. Smart folks don't just go around, oh, I heard this on the internet, or Sally said this. They go out and they find out for themselves what the truth is, and then they can speak about it freely. They can feel however they want to feel, and then they'll be smart folks. So that's all I encourage, is being a smart consumer and a smart person as far as what information you're sharing, because you are having an impact as well. If you're out sharing that prong collars are bad, or e-collars are bad, or they're evil, or they're torturous devices, and you've never used them, you're impacting people that might have amazing benefits from those tools, or from a trainer that could use those tools or help them out with those tools. Your opinion might be impacting people from actually taking advantage of them and having a better life with their dog. So make sure that you own that responsibility before you go out and share what you share. That's all I ask. Check it out, get hands-on experience, get knowledgeable about it. Don't have to be a doctor in it, you don't have to be a dog trainer, but get some real hands-on experience, get some real, like, I've been there, I saw it, I saw how it worked, and now I know, and then speak about it. And once you do, like, I encourage you to have whatever opinion you have. Just make sure it's based on experience. That's it. All right, Sean from The Good Dog. One last shot of Nola. Time to get to work. Audiobook awaits. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.